en Armas de Guerra. En combates que toman lugar en un abrir y cerrar de ojos. La mente del vencedor ve miles de imágenes. El perdedor conoce la eternidad. Ningún país puede aspirar a una victoria total sin este exterminador de carne, hueso, ego y valor. Historias verdaderas de hombres que volaron, lucharon y vencieron una y otra vez. Pilotos de combate en Armas de Guerra. Pilotos de combate, los Ases.
There's no question that to be good in this arena and to survive in this arena and to be successful, one has to be a risk taker. One has to be willing to take the fight to the enemy. There were many who could have done what I did and never had the opportunity. There were some who had the opportunity, but they weren't ready for it, or they didn't take advantage of it. They didn't seize the moment and go for it when they had it.
He all of a sudden pulled up very strongly and turned to the left to go into the bomber group. And while he turned to the left, I cut under him, and while I was cutting under him, the tail of his plane exploded, and he was shot down. And then immediately I had all those Russian fighter planes on my back.
So I just rolled underneath like this as he's overshooting, reverse, squeeze the trigger, he blew up that quick.
Sure, it's exhilarating and it's kind of nerve-wracking at the same time, because you realize it's like big game hunting, only this time the tiger can hunt right back at you.
You're scared every time. You become less scared the more experience you get. Your first mission, am I going to come back from this? This is serious. What am I into?
Got the heads-up call. What heads-up meant was that they had us in sight and they'd been cleared to fire. That's another elevation of the adrenaline pumping. One really begins to look around at that point because we didn't have them in sight.
In Korea, where I flew into the ground, I'd been hit at such a low altitude that I knew the ejection seat would not save me. So I knew I was going to have to fly into the ground. You're sort of like riding in a big iron coffin when you hit the ground, and you just have to say, geez, I hope I make it.
You can have all the knowledge, you can have all the experience. If something happens to your engine, without any enemy hurting your plane at all, you can lose your life.
Only the spirit of attack born in a brave heart will overcome the odds.
Solo el espíritu del ataque, nacido en un corazón valiente, sobrepasará los obstáculos. Palabras de un famoso as de la aviación alemán de la Segunda Guerra Mundial. Es el credo de todos los pilotos de caza del mundo. Cómo combatir, cómo matar, cómo sobrevivir en el aire toma muchas horas explicar, años para aprender, y solamente unos cuantos segundos para experimentar. Pero en esos pocos preciosos segundos, un hombre enfrenta el máximo reto de sobrevivir. Si él gana y vive, obtiene un poderoso sentimiento de alivio y euforia que jamás podrá ser conocido por aquellos ajenos al círculo.
There is a kinship, there's a spirit, there is a bond. The fighter business on its own is one of the most exciting and challenging and complex arenas that there is. Let's think of an arena where living or dying depends on winning or losing. And when one wins and one lives, it's a pretty exciting and pretty consuming feeling.
Volar aviones de caza ha sido siempre una tarea que requiere habilidades y aptitudes que pocos poseen. No es solo volar, sino llevar al avión y así mismo al mayor extremo y a veces más allá. Cuando subes a la cabina debes estar dispuesto a mentir, a hacer trampa y a robar para vencer.
You compete on the rules that are established. If the rules that are established are to kill a guy, you go ahead and do that. You're doing what you're paid to do.
In the fighter business, it's totally impersonal. You don't know him, you may never even see him. Unless he bails out, you probably won't. But it's a machine against machine by two supposedly competent individuals who are getting the most out of this machine. And when you shoot down that MiG, it doesn't occur to you that you may have killed somebody. You beat that MiG. It's fairly impersonal.
No existió jamás una misión sin peligro. Si vencías a tu enemigo, eras el mejor, al menos por ese día. Si podías derribar a 5 aviones, te convertías en un as. Es el máximo honor para un piloto de caza. No hay ningún secreto para el éxito. El deseo de ganar es el ingrediente principal de la victoria.
You could look at him and say, this is a real cool cat. I'll be happy to let him fly a little wing, or I'll let him fly his wing.
When I was a leader, I could look out on my pilots as I was briefing in combat, and 10% of them you could count on getting involved and mixing it up with the enemy, maybe firing a gun. 10% on the bottom of that scale would have engine trouble, turn around and go back, or something would happen and they would not see the enemy or not get involved. The remaining 80% would sort of be along, and they'd sort of be along for the ride. So it was a function of you had to want to do it, and you had to say to yourself, I'm going to get involved in that.
Las tradiciones del combate aéreo se originaron en la Primera Guerra Mundial, cuando se introdujeron nuevas máquinas y armas, y ciertas tácticas y teorías se volvieron obsoletas. Volando en el frente occidental, pilotos como el barón von Richthofen, Eddie Rickenbacker y muchos otros fueron leyendas de un enfrentamiento que parecía personal y honorable. Fue allí donde nacieron las reglas modernas del combate aéreo.
Just the mere fact of having the opportunity to train on a daily basis is the key to any pilot's success, today or the future. With laser weapons coming down the line, with technology and aircraft performance, little has changed since Richthofen and Immelman. As I mentioned, they wrote the dictas on how to kill and survive in the air along with Oswald Boca back in 1915, 1916. A lot of those same rules apply today.
Algunas de estas reglas son: la rapidez es vital, nunca ser predecible, saber la posición del compañero, buscar la ventaja táctica y mantenerse agresivo.
So the challenge is to find out where your edge is and operate on the edge of your ability and, of course, the ability of the machines.
As a fighter pilot, you have to be alert to the fact that a standard pattern or standard procedure becomes predictable and becomes a trap.
That's the maneuver of ours to catch them by surprise. I think any technical reference manual you find, even today, will tell you that any airplane performs best at full throttle. And the guy who gets to full throttle first is going to be the guy that wins. And boy, that's a cardinal rule, and that goes for anything all the time. If you get there first, the other guy's got to play catch-up from that point on.
Gracias al legado de los duelistas del aire que creció durante la Segunda Guerra Mundial y Corea, las tácticas se volvieron más refinadas, los aviones más letales y los pilotos mejor entrenados. El instante decisivo de un combate comenzó a disminuir de minutos a segundos, misiles reemplazaron a cañones y la velocidad de vuelo aumentó. Hizo falta la guerra aérea de Vietnam para comprobar nuevamente que las tripulaciones de vuelo agresivas aún determinaban la diferencia entre victoria y derrota.
In World War I, they had many, many airplanes. They had more time. You know, you'd see an airplane 10 miles away, it'd take you 20 minutes to get there. Now, a lot of times when you see an airplane, he's already launched his weapon at you. At a mile away, a MiG-21 is a dot. And the first thing you might see is that smoke trail. Well, now you've got to react to that. And then as soon as you beat that, you analyze, is he turning on you? Or is he overshot? Now, my speed is such that I can reverse and engage with him, or there's more coming, I've got to disengage.
De todos los pilotos que combatieron, vencieron y sobrevivieron en el aire, en cualquier era, sin importar las condiciones, la voluntad de ganar marcó la diferencia entre la vida y la muerte. Los pilotos exitosos fueron los que sobrevivieron.
Armas de Guerra continuará en un momento. Usted está viendo Armas de Guerra. Armas de Guerra.
When you fly combat, what you try to do in your own mind is line up the performance capabilities of your airplane and then the known performance capabilities of the enemy aircraft. And if you list them side by side on a piece of paper, you can tell where you are at an advantage and he's at an advantage. So then you don't, when you try to get into combat with him, you don't fight on a circumstance where he's better than you are at what you're trying to do.
El combate aéreo es un mundo tridimensional de velocidades vertiginosas y maniobras verticales, en el que el cerebro humano puede hacerse agua y salir por los oídos. El piloto solo cuenta con su instinto. Es el instinto lo que lo hace un as.
We were pioneering jet combat. We were operating at extreme altitudes and extreme speeds. That was the so-called envelope that the MiG operated in. So we operated in there too, or you didn't compete. We were scheduled on a sweep up and down the Yellow River. We came upon this flight of MiGs, which is actually directly below us at what they call 12 o'clock. It was low. So I rolled down behind him. And on the way down, I noticed he had a red dragon painted the full length of his airplane, which gave me some concern. This was no novice. When I came out behind him, I couldn't have been more than 200 feet from him. And he filled up my windscreen, so I let him have it. He started to burn and immediately dove into the clouds, which was a real smart maneuver. He was going to throw me off. But he was burning so good that I could track him through the clouds by following the smoke trail. And he'd come out of the clouds and I hit him again and back into them. And this happened 3 or 4 times. The next thing I realized was we were both going straight down. The MiG went straight into the ground and hit so hard it didn't even burn. The only reaction was to start the pull-out. And while leaning slightly forward, that threw my head down. In a 10G pull-out, I couldn't sit up, although I made a Herculean effort to sit up and see whether I was going to bust my ass or make a pull-out. I was out of control. And something in the back of your mind is counting for you and saying, now it's time to do this. And whether this is minutes or seconds or nanoseconds, you don't know. I gather that what I had done is do a loop in the process of making a pull-out. Again, on that 5th MiG, I was totally out of control. And when I pulled out, I said, thank you, Lord, I'll take over now.
En la Segunda Guerra Mundial, Big Bomb, con 40 aviones derribados, y Tommy Maguire, con 38, fueron los 2 principales ases estadounidenses. Volar con algunos de ellos garantizaba entrar en acción.
Dick led the flight down, and when we broke out at the bottom, there was a break melee. I saw Dick break well out in front, of course, and he took a very high-angle snapshot at what looked to be an Oscar fighter, and it made a turn to the right, climbing towards the attacking end of Dick Bomb. He took a snapshot. It couldn't have been more than 1 second, maybe a second and a half, and he blew it up. I broke the other way because there was a jack fighter that looked like it was going to come in on the left-hand side of our flight. It did not. It turned slightly away from me and started downhill. I simply pulled him back and followed him down. I hit him 3 times, and the third one blew him up. And by this time I was close enough to him that I flew through the debris, which was a good deal. My flight leader saw my predicament and came up alongside and said, let's get the hell out of here, because I couldn't see where I was going. He talked me down, helped me get on the ground, which we did successfully. The airplane, as it later turned out, was what we call Class 26. I'd flown through so many parts that it torn up the airplane pretty bad.
El combate puede atemorizar, pero también intoxicar a un hombre. Es difícil resistirse a un mundo en el que uno vive solo día por día.
We had a visit from a USO troupe of the Broadway show in Oklahoma, and I was able to meet one of the dancers, General Berlin, Eloise. She and I found it all together on the few days that they were there. Everybody wanted to take a ride in the P-38. Eloise was much too popular to let go in the normal course of events, so I said, you'd like to go up too, I suppose? And she said, oh, indeed I would, you know. Where's my parachute and how do I get in the airplane? So the morning came that we were going to do a strafing mission, routine air-ground support mission. We had a wonderful time. We got off the ground and she was pounding on my back. Her head is leaning over my shoulder because it's kind of cramped inside the cockpit with the canopy closed. And about halfway down the run, as I'm checking gun switches and so forth, I got this wrapping on my shoulder, just pounding, and I looked up and she was pointing out the window and shouting in my ear, "What is that?" And I looked over to the left, and here were the little red tracers of anti-aircraft coming up, and not very close to us, but I told her, I said, "They're shooting at us." And she screamed and says, "Well, let's shoot back." I said, "Okay." So we did.
La voluntad de vencer jamás podrá ser entendida solo con palabras. Bob Mahoring venció el miedo y las probabilidades necesarias para sobrevivir a 2 guerras y a 3 enemigos.
I'm the only person who shot down aircraft in Germany and in Japan and in Korea. So that's unique in that sense. Now, I'm not sure what that meant because I got shot down everywhere I went. I'm the first one in the world to admit that first 10 or 12 missions, I was scared to death. I sat in the cockpit and figured, my God, I'm going out and I'm going to get killed. I flew in Europe against the Germans until March the 27th of 1944. And on that day, we were attacking a city called Tours in France, and I looked down and saw a twin-engine German bomber scooting along the ground, and I could see the top turret blinking back at me, and I knew he was fighting. And I finally shot him down. And all of a sudden, there was an explosion. Fire came out of the cowling, and I bailed out. I ended up by making contact with the French underground. I was in France for a month and 3 days. It's like a great Z movie, and I don't want to get into it too far. So I got transferred to the Pacific and managed to shoot down a Japanese aircraft in the Philippine Islands. A little bit later on, I had to bail out of the P-51. It seems like it takes 4 years for that parachute to open once you've pulled the ripcord. Of course, it only takes probably a second or 2 seconds, but that's what your mind does. Pretty soon, this rescue boat showed up, and I got on board, and they handed me a cup of hot chocolate, and I drank it down and instantly went to the stern and threw up everything I'd eaten for about 10 days, I think. When the Korean War broke out, I went off to war flying F-86s, and on the 5th mission, I was carrying 2 1,000-pound bombs. I rolled over and dropped the bombs and told the rest of the guys that I was getting anti-aircraft fire. As I turned around, I looked down on the ground and saw a truck going down a road, and I thought, well, I'll just go down and pick that truck off, and then I'll have a good story to tell the boys at the club when I get back to base. And when I got down low and slow to shoot the truck, of course, I got hit. And cockpit filled with smoke. I called over the radio and said I'd been hit. You don't say I've been hit in that tone of voice. You say I've been hit. I had to pass over another couple of heavily defended towns, got hit about 4 more times, and ended up my flying airplane in the ground. It crashed in a rice paddy. It broke up. It turned over a couple of times, and I broke my left arm when I got out, covered with mud, and I couldn't walk through the mud. I just kept slipping and sliding, and so of course the North Korean and Chinese soldiers got me within 5 minutes after I'd hit the ground. I was in the hands of the North Koreans for about 45 days, then became a prisoner of Chinese communists. I didn't speak to another individual, speak at all, for about 7.5 months. I also didn't get a bath for 7.5 months. It was a very unsatisfying experience, and since it took 16 months, it took too long. But as far as flying F-86s in North Korea, it was, I use this word and I always kind of smirk at it. It was just as much fun as flying P-47s in England.
Armas de Guerra continuará en un momento. Usted está viendo Armas de Guerra.
Okay, tally ho. I got him. Going the other way. Okay. He's no threat to you now. He's no threat.
Si uno es bueno, dos es mejor. Varias victorias aéreas son poco comunes en guerra, pero hay momentos en que los pilotos de combate veteranos generan su propia suerte en base a deseo y esfuerzo.
I know the top-ranking ace of the world. His name is Eric Hartmann, and he has 354 aerial victories, most of them in Russia. But he had experience. He shot down 18 in one day. So how do you account for that? Being in the right spot at the right time is one thing, but being good at it is another.
En el Océano Pacífico, Tommy Maguire y Dick Baum perfeccionaron el uso de breves ráfagas de fuego y maniobras de alta velocidad en aviones P-38, destruyendo la flota aérea japonesa.
Many of the multiple kills were on a single pass. And that's where the good gunners came in, of which both Tommy and Dick were very, very good gunners, particularly high angle, like high-speed duck shooting. You had to get out in front of them. And both of these gentlemen, even despite their tender years, were absolute experts in air-to-air gunnery.
Most fighter pilots, at least in World War II, didn't try to do any clever tricks because you're vulnerable, especially if you start to do a maneuver where you pull up and it's kind of a half loop. Up at the top of that thing, you're going slow, you're upside down, and you're really vulnerable. A lot of those clever maneuvers are really good in air shows, but they're not very good when it comes to aerial combat.
En Vietnam, donde la velocidad y el armamento habían llegado a un extremo salvaje, dos futuros Ases, el capitán Steve Ritchie y Chuck de Bellevue, derribaron a su tercero y cuarto MiG en una batalla que duró 1 minuto y 29 segundos. Demasiado rápido para los ganadores, toda una vida para los perdedores.
On the 8th of July mission, which was the most intense, the most exciting, the most perfect mission that I ever flew. It was one of those days when it all came together. During that minute and 29 seconds, I had to draw on every life experience that I had ever had. Everything that was part of my makeup and my training, my education, had to come together at that moment and work, and it did. And few people ever get to experience a moment where everything gelled. And it is a feeling that is, it's just hard to describe. As the mission began to develop, one of the MiG-cap flights that had been in earlier had actually been hit by a MiG, and he had broken formation and was headed out. He was bleeding fuel and hydraulics and was announcing his position, heading, and altitude on the emergency frequency. A very bad idea, because the North Vietnamese are monitoring the emergency frequency, and they see a cripple limping out by himself, they're going to send MiGs after him. So we headed in the direction of the fellow that was coming out with trouble. And we began to get calls from Red Crown and Disco that there was additional MiG activity. So you can imagine the adrenaline is beginning to pump. I've headed to low altitude, got a call, heads up. What heads up meant was that they had us in sight and they'd been cleared to fire. One really begins to look around at that point because we didn't have them in sight. I had just rolled out on a heading, easterly heading, would have stayed there probably about 8 seconds. When I got a call from Disco, 150 miles away, orbiting over Laos, looking at this whole arena on his radar scope, and I just happened to hear it over all of the radio chatter going on. I heard, "Steve, they're 2 miles north of you." I made an immediate left turn from a heading of east to a heading of north, picked up the MiG-21 at 10 o'clock. Now, had I stayed on that easterly heading, the MiG would have been right in the rear quarter. The timing was so perfect that I probably wouldn't be here to tell the story today. picked him up at 10 o'clock, rolled left, blew off external fuel tanks, went full afterburner. We passed about 1,000 feet from each other. I could see the pilot in the cockpit. It was a bright, spit-polished silver MiG-21 with bright red stars. When I saw the lead MiG, the great tendency, of course, is to immediately turn to try to get an advantage. But I didn't see number 2. They'd been calling 2 blue bandits. I knew there were 2. So I waited. I rolled level, pushed the nose over, and waited. And sure enough, number 2 came along about 8,000 feet in trail. Immediately when he passes, I go into 135-degree, level, 90, 135, nose down, slicing turn, about 6.5 Gs. Well, you can imagine, I can't see what's happening back over here. Well, about halfway through this turn, I began to roll out of the 135 degrees, and as I roll out of that 135 degrees and begin to look back, thinking that they're going to be somewhere back around here, to my great surprise, I see a MiG up over here, in the opposite direction, in the opposite direction of where I would expect the MiG to be, because instead of turning to the left and going to this side of the circle, they turned to the right and went to this side of the circle. So now I'm in a position with my nose down, the MiG is high in a right turn, I'm in left turn. Even if I pull my nose up, we have what is called a very high angle off.
Por el difícil ángulo del MiG, Ritchie y de Bellevue no podían aún disparar sus misiles. Entonces Ritchie dirigió su F-4 Phantom hacia una ancha maniobra de barril, dando un giro y una vuelta para colocarse en una posición que lo ponía directamente detrás y debajo del MiG, listo para disparar.
The target is high in the blue sky, good for a radar lock-on. The MiG sees us, turns down into us. I squeezed the trigger. The first missile went through the center of the fuselage of the MiG, and the second missile went through the fireball. Felt a nice jolt on the stick, and what had happened, a little piece of debris had taken a nick out of the leading edge of the left wing. The lead MiG, the silver MiG, had come all the way around the circle, and the other 3 airplanes in our flight were in trail. And now the shiny MiG was coming into position on number 4, Tommy Fiesel. I've cut across the circle and achieve a similar position now on the lead MiG that I'd had on the wingman just before. Except the lead MiG was a lot better than the wingman. He saw us, forgot about Tommy Fiesel, started a hard turn down into us. We call it flat-plating the airplane. It looked like he just maneuvered the airplane. Put him in the gun sight, check that it's a good lock. And that's all I needed to know. Missile came off the airplane. It looked sort of like a sidewinder. It began to snake. And it did not appear to guide. And I was talking to it. I said, the target's over here. All of a sudden, the missile did what appeared to be a 90-degree right turn and hit the MiG dead center in the fuselage. The missile was pulling about 25 Gs and was accelerated to about 1,200 miles an hour when it hit. So you can imagine what the explosion was like.
Armas de Guerra continuará en un momento. Usted está viendo Armas de Guerra.
Sobreponerse al temor es un ingrediente clave para poder combatir cada día, inclusive mientras busca el camino de la victoria. El piloto de caza tiene que negar el miedo que siente e ignorar la posibilidad de la muerte. Aun si se obtiene la victoria, esta siempre tiene su precio.
The toughest mission I ever flew was the mission upon which I lost the only wingman I lost in World War II. On this particular day, we were escorting B-24s. I was leading the squadron, as a matter of fact. We got broken up early by some fairly aggressive and pressed attacks from Zeros and Oscars. I noticed down below and to my right a single P-40 who was chasing a Zero. And apparently he didn't know that he was in turn being chased. And I concluded it was my wingman. So I called and I said, "Jack, hang on, I'm coming down." And so I did. I tried to get to him, but he didn't make it. The two Zeros chasing him both caught him just on the water, and I saw the airplane go in, and there was no chance of survival. The airplane that had shot him down, for reasons that I have no way of knowing, continued in a straight line for perhaps 5 seconds. And at that point, I was in firing position behind him and set him on fire.
El piloto japonés que Bob de Haven derribó fue después identificado como un as, responsable de 15 muertes estadounidenses, pero no hay ninguna sensación de triunfo si un compañero muere en batalla, solo el verdadero dolor de la guerra. Kurt Schultz no es un as, pero logró sobrevivir 5 años volando con la Luftwaffe alemana. Siendo experto piloto bombardero, fue transferido a un grupo de combate en el frente extremo norte ruso, cuando Alemania se desesperaba ante el incesante bombardeo aliado.
It was the 16th of September of 1944. In the morning, there was an alarm. At that time, flew with Jockel Nords, very well-known, successful fighter pilot. All of a sudden, we saw the Russian bombers, Boston bombers and fighters in front of me, and he pulled up right in front of me, and when I cut under the plane, a Russian plane came from behind. They shot at me, and I saw the ammunition flying, and the tail of his plane exploded, and he went down. Then immediately I had all those Russian fighter planes on my back. They shot at me, and I only got away by being very, very close to the ground, and they almost followed me to the airport. I had a lot of holes in my plane, and I couldn't fly my plane anymore. Fortunately, the wing commander had gone on a vacation the same day, so I took his plane, and in the afternoon when we started again, and I would say we were maybe 20 planes going out, and all of a sudden I saw 4 Russian planes. And I was still kind of upset what had happened in the morning and felt that I had to do something. So I got out, and my wingman followed me, and we started towards those Russian planes. They detected us, and right away they split up. And every time when I had 2 in front of me, immediately I had 2 in the back of me. When too much ammunition started flying, my wingman just took off. Put his plane on, his nose and was gone. So I kept on dilly-dallying around with these 4 for a while, but it got too hot for me, so I also followed my wingman. All of a sudden I saw a plane just come from the right and pass in front of me. And I thought it was my wingman, so until I got real close, I saw this big red Russian star, and I immediately got behind the plane and shot that plane down. But my happiness didn't last very long, because all of a sudden I had forgotten about those 4 Russian fighter planes, and so they started shooting at me, and I got hit. Black smoke developed in my cabin, and I had to bring the plane down. I couldn't parachute, it was far to go. And I hit the ground there, and the plane turned around and hit my head on a gun sight, and I thought that's the end of me. But when I came to, I found that I was still alive. And after I had walked for several hours, all of a sudden, a German patrol came in. They had seen that I had been shot down, and they got me out of there. And the next morning, Stork, one of those German planes, the Stork came and picked me up and took me back to the airport. There was my friend Heinrich Erler, the wing commander. We had a few drinks, and he said, "That's great, so let's go again." So we started again in the afternoon, and I think that was his way of making sure that we wouldn't think too long about what had happened after we had been shut down. As long as you could walk, you were flying.
En tierra y en las películas tal vez luzca glorioso, pero una vez en el aire la experiencia se vuelve caótica, una serie de errores en la lucha por la supervivencia. Cuando un hombre enciende su avión, no hay puntos para el segundo lugar. Buscar al adversario, derribarlo, simple, fácil, pero la realidad de acabar con otra vida, aún la de un enemigo, puede afectar inclusive a los pilotos más profesionales.
When I trained, I trained 2 years in Iraq, and I trained 2 years in Iraq. 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 And and put myself in a mental attitude to go out and win in the air, I never really considered what it was really like to take another human life. And it's something that you just kind of gloss over. You go out and fight and you train to do a job, but you really don't allow yourself to think of in depth of that. At least I didn't. And when it actually happened, even after coming back on the ship after the first kill, they had a party. All the skippers were there, all the people in the celebration, and then someone walked up to me and says, "Hey, Duke, what's it like to kill somebody else?" And that was the first time that it really hit me square in the face. I couldn't go to my fellow fighter pilots because that wasn't macho. I couldn't go to my commanding officer because I thought he'd worry about me in combat after that. So I went to the only person that I thought I could, and I went to the chaplain. He told the skipper in the long run, and I told the skipper that I could do the same thing over again, but it just bothered me a little more than I thought it would.
Mostly in aerial combat, you're shooting an object out of the sky. It's another airplane. It doesn't come to your mind, really, that there's a man with a heart and a family and whatnot sitting behind the controls of that airplane. I'll never forget the first time I shot down an ME-110, came up behind him, fired at him, hit him very hard, and as I flew by him, because our airplanes were faster, the rear gunner was hanging, caught in the rear cockpit, with his body flailing out back against the fuselage. The pilot was slumped over the cockpit. I must have gone by maybe 30 or 40 feet off to the side. And the first time I realized that, geez, there's a human being in there, and there they were. Might be interested to know that I have gotten a letter about a year ago from the nephew of that pilot that I shot down. I know the guy's name now. I know what happened on the ground. I know quite a bit about his family, and that brings that whole episode closer and closer to me as a human being.
Armas de Guerra continuará en un momento. Armas de Guerra.
Toda batalla es impactante, pero si alguna vez hubo un ejemplo de combate aéreo que contenga cada experiencia que una tripulación de vuelo amaría y temería, este podría ser el combate que tuvo lugar el 10 de mayo de 1972. Randy Cunningham y Willie Driscoll están entre quienes vivieron para contarlo.
As I pulled off target, remember I was a bomber on 10 May, I dropped rock eyes on Hydron Railroad Yard in the storage area and pulled off target, reversed to the starboard, and I made the comment, "Willie, look at that target we just bombed." It was a mistake. I was not thinking about MiGs, because at that time, Brian Grant, who was in a trail position like this on me, 4 MiG-17s flew right between he and I. One of them came down in a swooping pattern like this, and he called Duke, MiG-17 at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock is right here, not over here where I'm looking. As I reversed like this, a MiG-17 tracers were coming by my cockpit. And when he hit and broke into him, he overshot. His wingman went pure vertical like this. And the exact thought that went through my mind, his nose is high, he can't get to me before I get to him. So I just rolled underneath like this as he's overshooting, reverse, squeeze the trigger, he blew up that quick. And now I reverse back and I look at him, his nose is coming down, and I'm starting to unload to get my knots back to get away from him. And as his nose is coming through, I called Brian, I said, "Get him, baby, I'll drag him for you." And Brian says, "I can't, I got 2 MiG-17s on me." So I unloaded and got away from him. Brian got away from his MiG. We ended up in combat spread again. We had all kinds of gas, all kinds of weapons. We did a cross turn, went back up in the vertical, and looked back behind us toward the target. There were 8 MiG-17s in the defensive wheel. There were some Phantoms in that wheel, which was a mistake also. Commander Dwight Tim had a MiG-17 here, he had a MiG-21 here, and a MiG-17 here. Well, as I came through that circle, trying to knock the MiGs off of his tail, the other MiGs came around behind me, so I had 4 MiG-17s behind me. Willie says, "Duke, look up. There's 2 MiG-17s at 2 o'clock high." And I look up, and here comes 2 MiGs, and my comment to Willie, I said, "Willie, there can't be any more MiG-17s in the world. They didn't make that many." And they weren't. There were 2 MiG-19s. And they strafed, and they came up high like this, and I watched them, and they went vertical, and I said, "Willie, watch them." Tried to go back to help the XO, and he says, "Duke, they're coming in again on belly side." And I said, "XO, you're on your own." Now I reversed and broke up into them. They fired going by. I stayed away from the guns, reversed like that, and they just kept running. That'd have been very easy to take myself out of the fight and go chase those MiGs. But now the priority, I've got somebody in trouble. Like I said, he's almost clear across the circle. So now I unload like the burners again, come screaming down, and those MiG-17s start coming in on me again. So I finally got the XO to reverse. The MiG turned after him. It looked like this. As he goes underneath like this, the MiG reverses his tail, and I'm right here. I blew up this MiG. The other MiG-21 split us this way. The other MiG that was out to the side just disengaged. I'm sure they didn't see me coming, and they saw their buddy blow up, and they didn't want any part of it. We decided just to get out of Dodge at that time, hauling toward the Gulf of Tonkin. You can see the water up ahead of us heading east, and that's where I saw a single MiG coming at me. My exact comment to Willie, watch this, Willie, I'm going to scare the blank out of this Gomer. Pressed him right down the snot locker like this, and all of a sudden his winglets lit up with machine gun, and tracers started coming by, and it surprised me. I went vertical like this. Okay, now my mind comes in, Gomers, unless they had an advantage, would run. Hanoi was that way. Okay? So I went pure vertical, totally expecting the Gomer, the MiG, to keep running and head toward his field and unload. And when I came back over at the side like this and looked in the vertical over my ejection seat, straining to look behind me, I looked up and I saw a little set of Gomer goggles, little Gomer scarf, and we were going canopy to canopy. Came over the top like this, and he shot out here ahead of me. I broke to get out of his tracers, unloaded, went down, and tracked him at my 6 o'clock, which is the wrong place to be. Unloaded the airplane, got 500 knots, working back to the horizon, and then went pure vertical, about 4 or 5 Gs. Forced the overshoot here with him down below me. Stood on full right stick, which causes the airplane to kind of flow around like this and come around. Now, I remember thinking at this position, Gomer, you just died. So I'm starting to bring my weapon system on to bear. He waits till my nose is committed, and then he put out his fencing and hedges, broke into me, forced the overshoot, left rudder, left stick, rolled. Now, this is called a rolling scissors.
Cunningham y Driscoll no lo sabían en ese momento, pero en realidad se enfrentaban al as vietnamita Coronel Thun, quien había eliminado a 13 pilotos estadounidenses. Hacían lo imposible para mantener el F-4 en un plano vertical, maximizando las ventajas de poder y empuje de la nave. El combustible se agotaba. Ellos sabían que al perder altura y velocidad el MiG iba adquiriendo la ventaja. Ahora en menos de un minuto debían derribar al enemigo o de otra manera casi seguramente morirían. Cada vez que Cunningham empleaba las verticales, el coronel Thun imitaba sus movimientos paso a paso. 3 veces entraron en una maniobra de tijeras y giro vertical, pero ninguno lograba adquirir ventaja.
Willie came up one time and says, Duke, maybe we better let this guy go. And I said, Willie, no. And I remember just gritting my teeth and going, and thinking, pulling, and I would have rammed him if I had to at that time. Came into a third time on a head-on maneuver like this, only this time, for some reason, I think every time I'd out-zoomed him in this vertical pull. He pulled his nose up first, nice and easy, trying to save the G and energy. Well, when he pulled his nose and looking at a place like this, I came back to idle, put out the speed brakes, and dropped my flaps. And I just really put on the G here to end up sliding behind him. But now I'd misjudged, and I ended up about 600-700 feet behind him. I mean, I'm looking right up from here to the wall, I think. I can't shoot him with a Sidewinder missile. It's in min-range. At those airspeeds, he has got the advantage even though he's out in front. So I tried to disengage once I saw my mistake, stood on the rudder like this, trying to keep the F-4 from departing. And as I rolled this direction, his airplane went like this and departed. And looked, and when he reversed like this, I expected him to really totally pull back in and try and shoot me. But instead, he started running, and I remember thinking, well, I'm going to get away. And then he went a little farther, and I thought, well, if you're going to run, I'm not going to. So I reversed, used just rudder, unloaded the airplane, got a Sidewinder tone, shot, and a little piece came off the airplane.
En menos de 10 minutos habían derribado a 3 y se habían convertido en los primeros ases de Vietnam. Pero ahora los cazadores pasarían a ser la presa. Repentinamente, sin aviso alguno, su Phantom fue alcanzado por un misil antiaéreo que destrozó la cola del avión.
Willie wanted to eject because the airplane was on fire from him back. and we were still over, it's like flying over downtown Los Angeles. I mean, it was just solid city below us. And I knew I'd be a POW if I ejected, so I said, Willie, you stay with this damn airplane. I said, I'm going to try and get it out over the water. He says, Roger, I'm right behind you, Duke. Willie, cut that out, you know. And as we rolled and rolled, we got about 1 mile off the beach, and I heard a loud explosion, and the airplane went into a real violent spin. And I'd see land and water and land and water, and I'd see wind blows from ocean to land. If I eject here, I'm still going to be a POW. So I said, Willie, stay with me. I'm going to try and get this thing 1 more mile off the beach. And the controls were nothing here. I didn't know it. It'd blown my whole tail off. I'd always brief Willie not to ever eject until I say, Willie, eject, eject, eject. And I only got out Willie, E, and bang. He was gone out of the airplane. By the time we had bombed the target, pulled off target, engaged 22 MiGs, shot down those MiGs, got engaged by other MiGs, disengaged from them, got hit by a SAM, rolled the airplane off, and coming down in a parachute and hit the water. It was a pretty busy day.